Hi, my name is Josh Clark, and I am the Eastern Iowa Territory Sales Manager for Simpleray Solar. I'd like to talk to you all a little bit today about how solar energy can be the right choice for your business here in Iowa. We'll talk a little bit about how you can reduce both your tax liability and your electric bill. So here's a few pictures to start off with of some of our commercial installations. You can see we do both roof and ground mounted systems. So what we're going to cover in this webinar, we're going to cover utility costs or your electric bill, what an investment in solar looks like and what it can mean for your business, what tax incentives are available for you with a solar purchase, and how to actually get started along the process of getting a quote and installing solar. So we'll start with your utility costs. As we all know, everyone that's watching this, we all pay an electric bill. For you business owners out there, oftentimes that electric bill is a very large expense, and sometimes it may be your single largest business expense. It's an annoyance at best and a fairly serious cash flow problem at worst. And one thing that can be very troubling is that it's not necessarily a stable cost. Utility rates are frequently on the rise, especially as many of us Alliant customers here in Iowa know we're seeing those rates rise yet again rather significantly. And this could be a cost for some of your businesses that could be well into the thousands of dollars each month and the tens of thousands of dollars annually. So when it comes to paying your electric bill, there's really not a lot you can do about that. You get the bill in the mail, you pay it because it's a commodity that you must have to run your business. There's no negotiation that you can do about that here in Iowa, so you pay it and move on, unfortunately. So it is money that whether we like it or not, it's going to be spent. So if you're a little bit tired of kind of essentially flushing that money down the drain, paying the utility company every month, month after month, year after year, without necessarily seeing any tangible benefit other than providing you the necessity of keeping the lights on and keeping your machines running, it's probably time to consider solar energy. You can actually take that money that you are guaranteed to spend each month and each year and put that money towards an asset that your business will actually own rather than an expense. So again, another picture of a nice commercial array that we have done. That's in Newton, Iowa, Product Development Partners. They are a plastics and aluminum manufacturer. So what is solar power? So solar energy systems generate electricity during the day when the sun is out and the sun is shining. You use that energy that your array produces while it's producing. You use that rather than pulling energy from the grid. And you still, in almost every business case, you will remain connected to the grid even though you have a solar energy system. So if you need more energy than your system is providing at any given time, you're still connected to the grid, drawing power from the utility grid. So you don't necessarily have to think of going solar as losing that reliability of being grid tied, because you will still be grid tied. So it's really, while solar is terrific for the planet, terrific for reducing your carbon footprint, and terrific from a marketing standpoint, it really is an investment. Lowers your overhead. It pays for itself based on the savings that you'll see on your electric bill and on your tax bill. And it is a long lifespan investment. Almost all of the equipment in any specific solar array will be warranted from the manufacturer for anywhere from between 20 and 25 years. And solar arrays have an expected useful life of between 35 and 40 years. So what is the timeline? Let's say you're looking at solar as an investment, but it's very important to know how quickly will this investment pay for itself. For commercial projects, it's very common for us, depending on a number of factors, but we often see payoff time for commercial solar projects anywhere between 3 and 6 years. Not impossible to have a project that will pay for itself even less than 3 years in some cases. So as I already touched on, we're going to see warranties in the 20 to 25 year range with an expected lifespan even pushing past 40 years. So if you're thinking about an investment that pays for itself in 3 to 6 years, and then you very legitimately could have another 35 years of savings and value generated from that asset beyond that 3 to 6 year payback period, there's very few investments that a business can make that are going to show you that sort of financial gain. So let's talk a little bit about assets versus expenses. So a common expense is your electric bill, just as we talked a little bit about before. So it can be deducted as an expense. So there is a tax benefit in deducting the costs that you spend on electricity. There's no question there. But paying that electric bill, that expense, it doesn't actually add any value to your business or to the property itself. It's just something that must be done. When you go to sell your business, you have not, even though you may have paid your electric bill on time for the last 20 years, that has not generated any value for you as a business owner. Let's look at solar energy as an asset rather than an expense. Even though you'll spend money, you're actually purchasing an asset. So because it is an asset, from an accounting standpoint, you are able to apply depreciation. Solar is eligible for accelerated maker's depreciation. So this is a 6-year depreciation schedule. And solar is also eligible for Section 179 bonus depreciation. So depending on your situation, it could be possible that you could recognize all of that depreciation even in the first year of purchase. And again, we mentioned this before, but you're looking at a 25 to 40 year lifespan on this asset that you're purchasing. So a long-term asset, just like, say, a building, much longer term than most equipment purchases would be. Solar arrays require little to no maintenance. It's not to say nothing could ever break and need replaced, but the equipment is warranted and there are no actual scheduled maintenance intervals for a solar array. There are a number of incentives available in addition to the money you're going to save on electricity. So as we'll cover a little bit later in this presentation, there are the federal tax credit that's available and the Iowa tax credit, and as we spoke about before, the depreciation value. Your solar array is something that's actually working for you. You spend the money to install an array. It's like giving your roof a day job, like we always like to say. You're putting that array on your roof and it's working. It's saving you money day in and day out. What are the tax incentives available right now for going solar? So if you have a tax liability, so what I mean by that is if at the end of the year you have to pay in on your income tax based on the amount of income you make, then you do have a 30% federal tax credit available to you on a dollar for dollar basis. So if you install a solar energy system that costs you $100,000, that 30% credit would be worth $30,000. So if at the end of the year you had a good year, Uncle Sam wants a check for $30,000 in income tax, you have a $30,000 credit, you pay nothing. And one of the great things, and one question we get oftentimes is, well, what happens if I don't have the tax liability to use all of that credit in the first year? That's perfectly fine. You can use the federal tax credit all at once if you have that level of tax liability. If you don't, you have up to 20 years to carry forward the remaining balance and use as necessary with that federal tax credit. And as we talked about, these tax savings are in addition to your electrical savings, so it just helps make that payback even shorter. So a couple of other nice points on that federal tax credit is there is no cap on the amount. So For a very large industrial customer that spends $1 million on a solar array, that's going to equal a $300,000 federal tax credit, and etc. 2019, this year, is the last year for that federal tax credit to be at 30%. As you'll see in this table here, the tax credit will continue to drop after the initial drop between 2019 and 2020. You see 26% as the level for 2020. 2021 will then be down to 22%. And then from 2022 and beyond, the federal tax credit should remain at 10%. So let's also talk about the Iowa tax credit. This is in addition to the federal tax credit. So this is whatever this 15% credit is going to be applied towards your Iowa income tax. And it's 15% of the total cost of the system with a cap of $20,000 on commercial properties. So very large systems, you won't be able to take advantage of the full 15%. You will hit that $20,000 cap. The Iowa tax credit is tied at 50% of whatever the federal tax credit is. So when we see that decrease from 30 to 26% in 2020, the state tax credit will also decrease from 15% down to 13%, then to 11%, then to 5%, as you see in the table there on the side of the screen. We do want to make sure everybody understands, as you're looking at proposals from now through the end of the year, the 2019 Iowa Tax Credit Fund has run out. And what that means is every year the state of Iowa puts $5 million in the budget for this program. Once they have enough requests for the tax credit based on installed projects, they stop giving those tax credits out for that tax year, roll over the applications for the following year. So what we are looking at doing now for 2019 solar installations is applying for those 2020 state tax credit dollars. But the federal tax credit, there is no amount of fund that runs out. That's all based on the year in which the project is completed. One key point on the state tax credit. Even if your project is installed in 2019, but you can't claim the Iowa credit until 2020, you will still get the 15% state of Iowa tax credit, not the 13%. The amount of the credit is based on the year of installation, not what year the credit schedule is attached to. So an example of the 6-year maker's depreciation that we talked about. This table here, it's probably not useful for me to go through this line by line, but you can see here in the slides that you're able to claim that depreciation somewhat front-loaded. The first 3 years of your installation, after your installation, will be the most valuable years for you on a depreciation basis. So what we're doing here, the numbers that you're looking at here are assuming a project cost of $40,000 and a 35% effective tax rate. So these numbers will vary on each business and each person's specific situation regarding project cost and regarding what tax rate, what tax bracket you fall into. So the way to do the math very quickly on that is you're able to depreciate 85% of the total system cost and then times whatever tax bracket you fall in. So if it's 35%, that's how the math works. You take $100,000, if you spend that on an array, 85% of that, $85,000, then 35% of that, that is the cash value of your depreciation. So how do we get started? If you think this is a great idea for you and you want to get the ball rolling and understanding more deeply if this is a good idea for you, we make a connection via the phone number, our website, Facebook, etc. Then we will do a little bit of qualifying and assessing over the phone or over email to understand your needs as far as electrical usage, what utility you're on, physical characteristics of the property, etc., etc., to understand just if this could be the right move for you, then at that point we would schedule an appointment for a site visit and time to develop an official quote. We do our best to make it a pretty smooth, straightforward process. This is not doesn't need to be a long, drawn-out, complicated process at all. We can generally, take the quoting process and condense that down from the first time we connect to an official quote in just a matter of a handful of days. And we would love it if you would reach out to us any number of ways. Simpleray.com is our website. The phone number here, 800-8080-SUN, or just send us an email, hello@simpleray.com. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this today, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon to see if solar energy is the right fit for you.